YouTube, it's Lori again. My screen name on YouTube is Go Entertain Yourself. And just to recap, the last video was about trying to figure out if you have a virus or an autoimmune disorder. And so I'm back, and this time we're going to talk about lab results and also walk you through a few more of the symptoms that have cropped up lately. So just to recap, I was 8 days with a hives rash that wasn't very itchy on my arms and legs and a terrible sore throat. I was on prednisone the entire time, starting on day 2 as soon as the rash erupted. And then I started an antibiotic a week later on the 14th because of a high fever. Went to the ER for fluids. Rash disappeared on the second day after I started the antibiotics. And finished off the prednisone, finished off the antibiotics, got on a new antibiotic just in case it was bacterial, and ended up in the ER a second time for high fever and a variety of just, what I thought were initially allergic reaction symptoms. Then my doctor clued me in that it might be autoimmune. So I got a referral to the Cleveland Clinic. And throughout that time, there were a lot of labs. I had labs 5 different days. On the 14th, when the fever started. On the 19th, when I went to the ER for the second time. On the 21st and the 27th with my family physician. And then on March 3rd, a whole bunch of lab tests with the Cleveland Clinic. And I'm going to kind of talk you through some of those types of tests. So that's where we are at. And my fever stopped on the 25th. All right, so just to get you through the lab results. In the beginning, when I went on the 14th to the ER, they ran labs that day. And the only thing out of the ordinary on the lab reports at that point was a little bit slightly high glucose, calcium, and protein in my blood work. However, on the 19th, when I went to the ER the second time with high fever, the platelets had dropped to 86, which is extremely low. My potassium was low, my albumin was low, my BUN was low. I don't know what that is. My AG ratio was low. Those things didn't concern them very much. They sent me home from the ER both times. Never did I get admitted. I don't know what, you'd have to be dead to get admitted? Honest to God. The numbers that concerned me, though, from that set of labs was that my AST and my ALT were quite high. Normal is about 30 for each of those. My AST was 180 and my ALT was 144. These labs didn't come to me until 2 days later. I mean, you're laying there in the hospital, they're giving you IV fluids. You don't ask to see your lab report. But it's so nice now. Everything's online. They let you have all that stuff later, so you can go back and sue them if they friggin' send you home and you should have been admitted, but not that we're planning that. Another number that came back high was globulin. Again, these could just be from infection from a virus, or they could be from an autoimmune disorder, or the AST and the ALT relate to your liver. The first number, the AST, is much more related to your liver, your kidneys, and your pancreas, I think. Those can be inflammation in any organ. The ALT is exclusively related to your liver, and both of them were elevated at that time. Another one that they pulled was C-reactive protein. CRP in your blood indicates inflammation. So that's the labs from the ER. They didn't admit me. The 21st, I went to my family doctor, and he did a high sensitivity CRP. Normal for that is 1 to 5, and mine was 37.5. So that's pretty high inflammation. He also checked my platelets again, knowing they were low, and they were still low at 93. I came back then a week later, and he checked some more labs. My ALT number, the second number that relates to the liver, was still high at 136. Again, normal is like 30 to 50, so really high. Another high sensitivity CRP showed that my super high number had dropped to 12.1, which is still high. 1 to 5 is normal. And then we got finally to go to the Cleveland Clinic. I call it Oz because Cleveland Clinic is run in such an efficient way that I literally never seen anything like it. I got to see a rheumatologist, and she ordered 21 different tests. So here's what they were. 15 of them were labs, blood work, 10 tubes of blood. 1 was a urine test, 3 breathing tests to check my lung function, 1 echo of my heart to see if I was having any heart-related issues, and 1 CT scan of my chest and abdomen. The only test I could not get done at the Cleveland Clinic in the same day was the CT scan. Everything else was in like 2 days later. I mean, I couldn't get my family doctor to do 21 tests in an afternoon. I couldn't get him to do that much work in 6 weeks. So what I've been struggling with is my family doctor really likes to, I don't want to say underdiagnose, but not jump to conclusions. And that's not a bad thing. But when you're the one that's sick as hail, you want to know what is going on. So I finally, after a couple, in the very beginning, him turning me down for blood tests, I got angry. And once we knew it was autoimmune, I was just really pushing hard to get away from him and get on to a professional. So I did that. And so just to get you back to some of the symptoms, by the time I got to Cleveland Clinic, I was no longer having a fever anymore, and my platelets had returned to normal. The last blood test that he did on the 27th showed my platelets were back to like 315, which is normal. It makes you feel like, should I go see a specialist or not? Well, here's the facts about, an autoimmune situation can come once and rear its ugly head and get spurred on by a virus and never show up again. 1 in 5 people have that happen. There's also something called intermittent autoimmune, where you have periodic flares every 6 months, 3 months to 6 months, or once a year or once every 2 years. That's intermittent. Or they have something called chronic, and that can be constantly flaring all the time, and you're having to manage it. And some of the drugs that they use to manage those types of illnesses sound like chemotherapy drugs. Some of them overlap. The trick is there's a huge list of autoimmune disorders. So I'm a dork, and I have all the time because I'm a housewife. So I'm just sitting here like Googling to hell, trying to figure out what it is, And I looked up every last autoimmune disorder, looked up the symptoms of each one, and came up with a short list of what symptoms seem to match some of those autoimmune disorders. I came up with 38 of them. The top 19 were 4, 5, or 6 symptoms each. And I took that list with me to Cleveland Clinic, which was kind of funny because my husband at the time, he's still my husband, at the time of the visit, he said, "Oh yes, this doctor who went to years of medical school would really like you to get out a list and show her what Google things you have." But in meeting with her, she asked me just about 1 million questions. She did a physical exam. And the only new symptoms that happened while I was waiting to go to Cleveland Clinic were I did get these itchy bumps on my chest. And frankly, those itchy bumps are still there. There's one over here. And they were itching like a mother. And so guess what? I'm sitting there eating dinner on the 26th with my husband, and he says, "Your chest is red." So he took this picture. Now this rash is different to me than the rash I had on my legs in that it was crazy itchy.